Hello, everyone. Welcome to the city of Hyderabad. Most of you are Hyderabadis. Uh, I know for sure, right? Where innovation meets tradition, right? Let's begin our conversation on navigating digital transformation in the modern workplace. That's a conversation we're going to have. My name is Vikas Gupta. I have an avid interest in this particular area of work, which is centered around future of work. In fact, my dissertation work on my PhD topic is centered around this, so I'm extremely excited about this topic, and how fortunate I am to have this eclectic group of leaders here with me on this particular panel, and I'll introduce to them very soon. That being said, in our leadership panel just before this, there was a term there was an acronym got introduced to you called FEUD, right? Fear, uncertainty, and what was the D for? You've already forgotten, right? Doubt. Awesome. So fear, uncertainty, and doubt, those were the three terms being used to summarize the situation we are in. And why we are in to that? Again, there was a follow-up conversation where there was a conversation or exchange about the digital technologies, specifically AI, who makes decision, whether it's human or the AI tool, and so on and so forth, right? So this whole buzz around AI is kind of growing up in the last 2 years. And that's what pretty much was described as Industrial Revolution 4. And people said that these kind of technologies will come into 4. That's what exactly happening pre-pandemic, right? But if I put my researcher hat on and start to think through this particular topic in a little more simplistic manner, are we in any different times? So if you think about Stone Age to now, all industrial revolutions which would have happened, from the first one with invent of fire, growing down to a steam engine, followed by computers, and now AI, which is the Industrial Revolution 4. Is that conversation centered around technology, usage of technology, trust about technology, talent needed for that technology which is coming in? Was that any different? No, the buzz was exactly the same. It's just that obviously the feud comes into the picture because you are kind of dealing with something new, and your belief is that if you are adopting something new, it's going to lead to some amount of a change for me, which causes discomfort for a lot of people. So setting up that as a context for you to think about this conversation and think about the broader theme of this particular event, which is all centered around tech, talent, and trust. Those are the three terms being used, right? I'll restrict myself to those three words because those are so very crucial, right? Now, why is technology getting developed, or why this change which is in and around us? It's just that human desire to do something better, or kind of find a little bit of ease for what I'm doing or discomfort I'm dealing with. And that's the reason why I'll go for maybe a faster car, maybe an electronic car, or a hybrid car, or a hydrogen fuel car, and so on and so forth, right? So those changes are happening owed to that. Now, if you start to think about some of those areas of work, right? It's humanity which comes to the fore, and trust is a big element of it, right? So on our panel, we have lots of these leaders who worked with pharma industry and supported talent in that particular area to grow. So you're going to get some wonderful insights centered around humans and what humans can do with it and what their organizations are doing into it. The biggest driver of these changes was all about automation. Whether it's fire, whether it's AI, everything is centered around technology. So we also have today leaders who are from automation industry and technology industry on this. So they worked or supported automobile, and they've also supported technology organizations. So you'll listen to a holistic perspective from them about this particular topic of how HR can add to the agenda there, right? You've heard from our CEO from BJR in the earlier context, right? This whole notion about cost, faster pace of change, and so on and so forth. It's all embedded in this particular conversation. So with that as a context, right, let me begin with my first question to this particular panel and say that if you think about this Industrial Revolution 4.0, think about digital technologies and AI getting talked about in every context, what is that one thing which is keeping you excited about it? And what's one thing which is keeping you up at night? So what's worrying you? What's keeping you excited about it? Shekhar, can you get us started?
Yeah.
Take a mic. If that doesn't check.
Okay. Hi. So with Hyundai there, anybody who feels you need to upgrade to a new car, I may not be the right person. I work with the R&D group, but you never know. We'll take it up over lunch or coffee. But what keeps me up at night is I think it's very exciting. The times are very exciting. While people are talking about the fear, I think what keeps me up at night is what next.
Okay.
Where can we jump on and move ahead, and what more can we do? So that keeps me up.
So Shekhar, what are you excited about in this change?
Well, I look at HR as a whole, and I look at learning and development space, for example, and I'm excited about how we can leverage AI and the tools around that, for example, towards making an employee get excited about their own career, right? I think it's time that we stop having employees say that my career is in my manager's hands. No, it's in their own hands, and how some of these tools can leverage and really have them believe in that. AI tools now have the capability to put the career back in their hands. What I mean by that is if we give them a tool that has data and algorithms that will tell them where and how they need to, what courses they need to finish to move towards their aspiration, for example. So that is one of the key things that is very exciting as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Padma?
So what excites me a lot about this is the sheer opportunity that industry has. In today's world, when there's so much competition and there's so much focus on bottom lines and including revenues, I think it becomes so important for us to have sound, effective, and efficient tools that help us churn out stuff very quickly. Yep. And when you look at, definitely when you look at the opportunity it gives humans, you can get a lot done, and then you can review stuff, right? And you can apply. So the earlier panel was talking about how it's never going to take over a human being's brain, but it's going to help become a very, very able assistant for the human being. I think that's what's so exciting. So the human beings can do something which is a lot more meaningful. They can use their time more effectively. And when you think about, I'm sure some of you must have read about experiments that have happened in Europe of how they were looking at 4-day week, a 4-day work week. Now, I really think this might push that into a reality, which means people and today's, especially in the recent past for India, with two, unfortunate incidents in the workplace, I think this seems very, very promising. It just makes life a little less stressful. I assume, think so. Also, I think for aging economies, right? I think it makes a lot of sense to have something which will help people take decisions. Now, one of the things, one of the senior, CEOs was mentioning was how wisdom comes into play. So in an aging economy, think about it. You have people who are senior who probably still have a lot to contribute to the economy, but they do not have the physical wherewithal. But with the wisdom and with what can be done, I think it makes a lot of sense for for us to have this technology. Of course, what keeps me awake is something that I was discussing with Vikas a little while ago. He talked about FUD. I was talking about Bani, which is the next version of VUCA, right? It is a very brittle world. It is a non-linear world, so it is incomprehensible. We don't know what's going to happen when. So some of these things are what keep you a little awake, and also how are people going to adapt the technology and adopt the technology and adapt to the change. I think those are things that probably keep me awake.
Uma?
Yeah, no, well said, Padma and Shekhar. I really liked your views. I'm going to talk a little bit from the current setup where I am and the world of private equity. Here, I think everything is like day before yesterday in terms of expectations. And so what better place to look at technology than this, right? How do you sort of free people up to do those day before yesterday tasks so that, they get their mind off all the, I would say, bureaucratic processes that often come within the HR, right? So I think, just to give an example, like normally a HRMS takes about 6 months or 8 months to implement, and we had to do it in 45 days to 60 days and get it up and running, because the ask was to get all the costs and expenditures by 3rd of the month, which was not happening. Like, the investors want to look at the details to decide what is to be done for the month, and you need to present that data very quickly, and we were giving it around 20th, right? Small things, very important things, but they really matter. So how do you get this game up quickly so that people get time to make that critical decisions for the organization? At another level, I think pharma is an industry which has got, and like many industries, but more so here I see, acute shortage of talent, acute shortage of talent. And anybody who's got some knowledge is really seen as something really big. Actually, it may not be that way. But because we don't have enough talent, you're always scouting for this. And so how do you treat this talent once they're inside the system? That's very important, right? And so you have to ensure that the experience that they get continuously with regard to their work or their development or dealing with other people in the organization is as actually great, so that they stay motivated on course to do that high-level stuff that you're looking at. We're not actually discovering drugs or molecules, but even to do the rest of it requires a lot of cerebral thinking and discipline to actually execute it. And if you sort of catch them doing all kinds of other things which don't matter to the business and then neglect this is really bad. And many times the HR processes end up like that. You actually end up spending a lot of time trying to regularize things, put things in place, and then you get less time for doing what it is. So I think there's a lot of importance of technology in HR when it comes to an environment like this, which is always in the day before yesterday mode, right? Again, taking an analogy from the manufacturing and automobile, if I were to talk about, and you talked about it, Shekhar, I think the time for people to learn about new techniques and technology and get to the market and sell has to be shrunk, right? And I'll give you an example. When we moved from BS4 to BS6 technology, COVID hit us just around that time. Now, I mean, I thank God for that. Most of us have never liked what happened during COVID. It was so unfortunate. But I think it was also a time for us to renew ourselves in many ways. And that time was spent beautifully well trying to train people on the new BS6 technology with a captive audience, right? I mean, you never get them captive. They're always on the field trying to sell. They don't pay attention. And sometimes that costs a lot when you go into the market trying to sell the product. And so this was a captive audience. They learned every nut and bolt of how the technology worked. And lo and behold, when the lockdown was called off, these people actually did a great job of selling in the market, which didn't happen otherwise. Direct business benefit, right? And sometimes I think this technology, the virtual technology, as well as the change that we made in the BS6, all came together beautifully well at that time for people to feel far more equipped and powerful to be able to go out in the market and fight, right? Because that's what you need to do most. So I think technology in a nutshell, because makes me think that it equips you to fight the competition outside much better than we could have done it before. What keeps me awake? I mean, I have insomnia at times, but other than that, I think the whole scene of what's coming tomorrow and the uncertainty of it sometimes makes me a little bit worried. But I'm trying to take it in my stride. I'm saying, let's take it.
Awesome.
Let's bring it on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Shad, would you quickly add? There is a mic up there for you.
So definitely technology is a top-down approach, what I see. And basing upon the business strategy, we adopt latest technologies and all. And communication technology plays a vital role, what we have seen. And in the pharma sector, yes, automation and digitalization is going on. And in the COVID times, the companies have generated profits, what we have seen in the earlier companies. So communication, I mean, everyday lives we are dealing with technology. Wi-Fi, if it is not there, we cannot live. So technology, we are living in the technology. Technology is advantage, and we have that resistance for change. We have to go for that. And yes, technology and is evolving. We need to have that adaptability. And though it has pros and cons, but technology plays a vital role, what I see.
Awesome. Thank you, Sharad. So clearly, I think one theme which is coming out very clearly up here, what keeping people excited is just the pace and how across industry you hear context of pace and how technology is transforming that. You also hear on the other side how this technology development which is happening is impacting cost, efficiencies, and productivity of the organizations and individuals, the way they're performing, right? When I look back and think about the same question, I think what keeps me excited about this whole thing is that it requires everybody in the organization to be involved. So it's not just one individual which has to be involved into it. It's not just one department which has to be involved into it, because the nature of technology is such that it works out of a LMS, right? Or the LLMs, the way they call it, right? The modules in the back end, right? And now if the technology itself is working on the collective knowledge and giving you ideas about what can be done out of it, everybody has to pour in their ideas into it. That's the only way this technology would be successful, right? And the second thing which keeps me up, somewhere Sharad touched about it, is the whole notion of change management. And it was extensively spoken about during the CEO panel, that how it's important for people to transform or start to think about adapting this technology and working out of that. So if those are the points, pace, everybody's involvement, and so on and so forth into the mix up there, if we start up our conversation about how, with all of that, you can start to build trust within your organizations, whether it's your people, whether it's your business leaders, whether it's the reputation of your organization in the marketplace. If I can have your responses, quick responses from the other way around. So Sharad, if I can start with you now.
So yes, technology is being everywhere. Even in the business processes and HR. HR, right from recruitment, you have applicant tracking system, and then automation of the entire HRIS is there, and in the training and development, you have LMS. So we are already technology-driven HR functions. Gone are the days where we used to have manual one. So some of the manufacturing companies still have the manual process, but major thing is we are already having portals, everything, right from attendance, facial recognition, FRs are there, the data gets down, the in and out, the entry of the employees, and then the entire performance management system. So you have all the success factors, so many HR portals are there. So we are already in of the technology in the HR functions.
Great.
So building trust happens across various stakeholders in my view, right? So as I was just mentioning, providing data on time, the first step of building trust, because it is for decision support. So that's one. Accuracy of the data, the authenticity of the data that you're providing. These are the things that build trust with every stakeholder. Here it could be an investor, it could be your managers, it could be the employees, everything. it's like pretty much like your telecom billing system. You always expect it to be absolutely right. You're not going to be double guessing about every bill that you get. And I think that's what builds trust within a system. And the second thing is, use technology for automating the processes that are low end in terms of value, but very important, and use the time available to develop those authentic relationships, dialogues, discussions, and things which matter to an employee, like your career, growth, mental wellness, and other kinds of things which actually help the individual. So use technology in a way that helps you to get accuracy and timeliness. Use your time to enhance the quality of discussions and growth in it.
Awesome. Padma?
So I'm going to talk about a couple of points with respect to trust. I work with Kantar, which is into market research. And market research and marketing industry is one of the industries that's projected to be most impacted by Gen AI or generative AI. Now, where does trust come in with respect to these tools, right? Number one, whether it is Copilot, whether it is ChatGPT, which has been in use over the last 2 years, and one of my colleagues has done some kind of quick anecdotal, right, kind of an input, which is he asked 3 of his team members to work on 3 different activities and come back. They came back with results, and he said ChatGPT is about 50% where I want it to be. Copilot was about 30% where I wanted to be. Now what happens? It means that somebody has to definitely look at it. And this is what even the CEO panel was talking about. You can't just take what you've got and say this is the fact. You have to review it. You have to fact check it. I'll give you another quick example that has happened to me personally and quickly and to a colleague, where he receives a call from one of his friends saying, I'm stuck in the airport, I need 70,000 rupees. Okay, and this is a video call. So this guy hasn't spoken to him for a while. He says, okay, I'll send it to you. And then in another 5 minutes, he gets the call from the same person saying, I need another 40, 70 was not enough. So this guy says, why didn't he ask me straight up front for 110? So he decides to call his friend. And the friend says, hey, we haven't spoken for so long. He says, but I just spoke to you 10, 15 minutes ago and I transferred money. He says, that wasn't me. Now, obviously, it creates a lot of distrust with technology, right? So these are 2 things that make you a little wary of it. But this is where trust, I think, comes in. So what kind of processes can you build in? And from an HR standpoint, I was thinking about what kind of culture do we need to build in, or what kind of value system will we have if a salesperson comes up with a proposal which you start wondering whether it is the right proposal or not, whether somebody comes up with a policy which is churned out by the system and the person hasn't put thought in it, when somebody comes up with a suggestion and you say, okay, let me give a reward to this person, and then you say, oh no, this was not really something that came up from that person, so how do I reward this person? These are all things that go in the domain of trust from my perspective. Also, many of us have heard about, how Russia is supposed to be meddling with American, elections, etc., etc. From a market research industry, there's something called robo-respondents, right? You want respondents to be genuine respondents because that is our business and we sell based on that to, we come up with insights and we give it to the end client. Now, if there are robo-respondents, how do you know that these responses are genuine or not? So these are the things I think we will have to deal with. Obviously, create an environment, and then there's the GDPR, for example. So you have to ensure that there is data protection in place and so on. So I think there are umpteen things that we will need to address as organizations, as HR, to ensure that people are aware of these things. People are conscious and they bring into play all of this awareness when they are using these tools and not just blindly go ahead and apply. It also brings about that scare in the people saying, so am I going to be replaced? And that trust comes into play. How do we ensure that this entire uncertainty or brittle environment using Bani is still going to not impact our trust?
Thank you. Thank you, Padma.
A very simple response, great responses that we got. And if I go very basic, right, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression, right? So one of our biggest ambassadors are our own college grads who join in the organization. And at that level, if I can tell them that, hey, you can trust us in the sense that your career is in safe hands. And the moment you join in, there are chatbots and there are tools that you can log into, right from basic things like submitting your documents. All the documentation thing is taken care of, and that's when I'm talking about trust. Those college graduates being able to trust us in a way that, I'm safe and secure in that sense. Of course, we regrettably had this case recently about Anna. Everybody might know about it. And that is where we have tools in place which are, in a way, recording what kind of stress level an employee is going through. So that is where the employee trusts us, saying that, okay, I am taken care of here as well. My stress levels are being monitored, biometrics with consent and other things otherwise as well. And you put the trust back in and say that, hey, you are well taken care of. We care about you. They are our biggest ambassadors and, of course, a very important internal stakeholders as well.
Awesome. So you heard perspectives on this whole notion with usage of technology, how from absolutely manual work to automation has happened. And if you really look at it in the last revolution, which is all about computers, how not just automation, but how digitization of records has happened, and advent of ERP, which has started to give us standardized information in a packaged way, and how you can look at that particular data and draw insights from that data to start working on some of the key applications which both you, Padma, and Shekhar, you've highlighted in your descriptions up there. And obviously, one of our event partners is Visit, and if you really think about advent of Visit, is again centered around some of those thoughts of how you can use the health insights of your employees and start to implement that back your wellness programs into your organizations. Now, if you really look at that, if that's the genesis or that's the base or that's the evolution of technology the way it's happening, what kind of people are really needed to do this job? The big talent question, right? In the earlier panel conversation, the whole conversation was all about leaders having softer skills, leaders or people having softer skills, people having skills of this new age. Resilience was talked in a big way, empathy was talked in a big way, and so on and so forth. The way I'll tee up this question is with a T model of leadership, or for that matter, T model of professionals for you to think about. What does this T model means? So if you really look at it, in the age and times we're living in, at every level, we need people who have functional expertise. That's the only way they can bring in their knowledge on the table for these technologies to grow, right? At the other end, for you to think about what's the horizontal line means, that you need it across the organization. So you need to be aware of organizationally how things are tying up. And you need T-shaped professionals in your organizations today. Now, if you think about the CEO panel conversation and the challenges centered around how can we find the right people at the right time at the right cost, right? And think about this T-shaped professionals for the age we are living in. What are you guys doing in this particular space? Uma, you're thinking through this quite deeply, so I'll begin with you.
So this is not an easy one, right? Because the change is coming so quickly, right?
Uma, the way you need to think about it is that if you think about a T-shaped professional, you think about in your organization what you would have done at attracting this individual, developing this individual, evaluating this individual, and so on and so forth. So think about it from a life cycle of a professional,
Right,
and then
right.
think about it, how you dealt with that in your industry.
Right. So T is a great concept in terms of a holistic individual. But I would say that domains like pharma require the I also very much, right? So not everyone needs to be a T. So I is absolutely important when it comes to domain knowledge.
Yeah.
But that itself is being impacted by technology, right? A lot of things. So if you look at the stage gate process of developing a product in pharma, the earlier process was a very long process, right? It normally takes a lot of time. Today, what is expected of people is to understand the nature of the molecule and the market, right? You need to understand both. Now, for a technical person, it's not possible to know what's happening in the market. So the first thing that we look at in our teams is, are you sort of collaborating enough with the other teams? The first thing that is very important. So you are a technical expert, but you need to understand what you are developing for, right? So that kind of, it's not intuitive anymore. It's actually coming out of a lot of collaborative skills to understand where and what to develop over this. So that's one skill, very, very important in the I-shaped individual that we're looking at. And we don't want to compromise that. We don't want them to know everything else, but they need to know what the technology, the science, the molecule is very important. Now, for the others, if you look at the other functions, the T-shape really applies here. Because, you can't say that you will only know business without knowing technology, right? You need to know a little bit of this as well to be able to play in the market. And that's why today, if you see, there is so much of cross-pollination of thought and idea between an R&D, a business development, supply chain, and the manufacturing coming together. It's like almost like creating, what we used to consider earlier as a startup team. Like this is a startup team which actually comes together, understands each other's work, and then decides how to position their functional inputs to make this work. So today we talk product, we talk market, we talk strategy, not just the technology. And technology has become the biggest enabler for us. So I think the way we are now developing people is looking at both these constituencies. How do you take them mile deep into technology, science, because this is pure science, and then how do you create people who understand a little bit of this and are able to position the company and its products in the market. So the life cycle today is in two parts. You go deeper into helping people to become technological experts and provide a career path in that, and then you have these other functions which become the business face or the front face of the organization, where again they need to learn about technology, but they are exposed towards a lot of business skills which actually helps them to grow. So this is quite challenging, if I can say, from the HR point of view.
Absolutely.
Because how do you create a person who understands science as well as market, as well as business, as well as logistics and everything? But that's what is the excitement now within the organization. Say, how many people can I develop whom I can actually move from one function to the other with aplomb and in quick time to be able to meet the business. So I think that is what is happening a lot. Other than that, one area that we're really focusing on is, again, the leadership skills. At the end of the day, when the environment is very fuzzy, what you really need are people who can stay calm, hold their fort, understand and scan what's happening in the market, and provide a sense of a rhythm within the organization to make things happen over there. Because it's all about how quickly you reach the market. So initially, if they thought 5-stage gates was the process, you quickly understand in certain markets probably that 5-stage gate is not required. But who brings that wealth of information and tells them, okay, team, no worries. While you do these things, let's now pull this piece out and see if we can look at the market. I think that's the kind of intuitive intelligence as well as ability to scan the market, which is really standing out.
Awesome. Awesome. Shekhar, would you add to that, knowing that you really focus on developing the groups up here?
Yeah, I was just beginning to think, and I completely agree with Uma. That is the kind of approach that you need to have, whether it's a T or an I. Gone are the days when we'd look at the IIM gate and say that this is where all my problems will be resolved, right? This is a time where we collaborate a lot with some of these premier places where leadership skills or nuances can be brought in. So that is one. So the key is to select that firm or that training organization that can bring in. But also, it's also about developing your own strategy within the HR as to how you're going to take this forward. For example, one of the key things that has worked very well for us is we have a program where we are trying to do a typical MDP, right, Management Development Program, and we've introduced something called as VRC, which is a virtual coach, basically. So every employee who's been put through that program gets to choose a mentor or a coach for them. And these are those top tier leaders who we believe are, have gone through the T and the I and have an idea about all of those things, right? So we have them on sort of a panel, and you get to shadow them. Very intensive program. We are piloting it. It's going well for now. So I hope we'll have some great results. Why VR? Why am I talking about that, the virtual reality bit, is because this is not subject to, they are on a business trip, so they are not available. They're here and they're not. No longer, I think, with technology, we are bound to the physical presence of an individual. So that is something that's going very well. This is where I'm highly also reliant on the L&D support, right? So my L&D, if that is in place, my organization, that comes around me. So, but that has to be really, really tight, right? The L&D leaders, if they are tight and they work very, very closely with HR, that makes the job that bit more easier. So
Awesome. So everybody's adding up, and I'll come to that. Padma, you want to say something very quickly?
So I think what we are doing as an organization, and I just mentioned that market research industry, there's a lot of opportunity. We've tied up with Microsoft to create tools that will work for us as an organization. It's a very, very important, and I think first mover kind of advantage partnership that we have built. Now, I think the kind of skills that critical, I agree, T is important, I is equally important, but I think that as part of the T, what is critical, I think, is something very old-fashioned: resilience, agility, ability to learn. Those are three things that are not going away anywhere. They continue to be very, very relevant. And what we've created as an organization is something called the Kantar success factors, which are all behavioral. But we have run programs to ensure that the last man standing understand what that means and are trying to embed them. Because, the I part of the T, right, the vertical line is very important in our industry too. But unless they have the framework, or they have the, if I may call it, the background in them, the muscle in them to be able to understand and learn the domain, I think it is going to be very difficult. Also, I think they need to get rid of their fear of the technology, because there is that fear that can freeze people saying, I'm going to lose my job, what's the point of learning all this, right? So how do we, and that's, so I when we were talking about this topic, I kept thinking of Darwin. We are back at survival of the fittest, and so to survive, your resilience comes in, your lack of fear is important, your agility to respond is important, and those things are not going away anywhere. I think they are very, very critical, and they're going to help differentiate from the survivors from those who become probably extinct.
Yeah. Thanks. Sharad?
In our pharma industry, yes, management development programs are there, succession planning, second line development. And major scientists what Uma ma'am was mentioning, major scientists, we take care of them for the techno-commercial roles, so that they are the subject matter experts in sharing the business and getting the leads. So that is one area where we hone their skills on leadership development and all. So everywhere collaborative efforts in developing the leaders is very important, and which is going on in our pharma industry.
Yeah, thanks, Sharad. So if you really listen to the perspectives up here on the talent side of the world, I think one key thing which is kind of common across this description up here is that skills are very important. Whether you place them under the T or I models, the skills are going to stay here for a conversation for some time to come. Now, if you think about on these skills and you start to think about, do you really have inventory of skills in your organizations today? And a lot of you will say that, okay, I do have, but not sure how to capitalize on it, right? So apart from that, if you also heard perspectives in this from this group up here is that they have programs which have been created to deal with each of those skill sets and how they make a difference, right? You've also heard not just the canned programs or the milestone programs, but you also heard specific targeted programs up there. And aligned to the times of where we started this whole conversation of technology, how these new apps have starting to emerge, and you're actually giving them in hands of your people to actually make use of that for their own learning and preparing themselves for the future is something which is emerging out very clearly. At the end of the day, I think one individual who's staying relevant and still the centerpiece of all the conversations is how is your employee representing himself or herself, not just at work, but outside the work. And that's creating a huge difference. And Ramesh, Shekhar very eloquently talked about his brand ambassador program. And that's the key which emerged as part of this conversation. So thank you, panel.
I just wanted to add one more thing, understanding that technology is going to touch all our lives, not just in the workplace. We have, we've tied up with MIT to deliver a series of programs to help people gain the basic skills for AI, right? So it is something I think we need to do as an organization. And I think somewhere as HR, we also need to start, and that's what I was talking about, resilience and agility, because we need people to start understanding these are relevant skills irrespective of whether they're in the workplace or not to survive. And we need to start thinking from a social perspective, what can we do, and not restrain ourselves to how it's impacting our business.
Absolutely. And it again, tying it back again to the earlier conversation with the CEOs, right? The generations and how that's kind of making a difference, right? Everybody has a different learning style, so how you kind of keep variety of tools available, which is kind of adaptable to everybody's learning needs up there. It's so very relevant for the conversation. Awesome. So with that as a backdrop, I'm transitioning to the last segment of this particular conversation very quickly to say, hey, actually technology. And if you really think about that topic for a minute and start to think about the societal changes which are happening around, the geopolitical changes which are happening around, the whole threats of cybersecurity, and how you kind of give that information in hands of people and it's becoming public, how can you still develop HR technology, which is very personal to the individual and to the organization, and still keep it humane? So what are some of the thoughts which come to your mind of what you're implementing in your respective organizations? Padma, if I can begin with you.
So
and I still want to give like 5 minutes to our audience
sure.
for questions. So
Sure. So what I do think is all this technology should help us give time, and I completely echo what Uma said, give us time to have more authentic, more face-to-face, empathetic conversations with our team members. When I'm saying team members, whether it's the manager with the team member, whether it's HR with another, business team member, it does not matter. But it should give us more time to reflect. It should give us more time to plan. It should give us more time to have real conversations. And I think that becomes critical. Otherwise, we are going to have, there is no point if we just bring in the technology and have the technology front-ending us without having any connect with people.
Yeah. Uma?
Yeah. So technology in the last few years has helped us to develop more flexibility in our life. I think that's the biggest blessing we need to use. While I was coming, I could attend a meeting to this place. That's a freedom which never had earlier. Technology will happen. It happened in the past as well. It is going to continue to happen, and more things will happen as we go forward. I think we don't need to get intimidated. Today, what we offer to our employees are a lot of apps and systems which help them to manage their life, their health, their mental state, right? Their ability to network within the organization with tools like Yammer, which used to be used earlier. Today, of course, WhatsApp is a lot more friendly to do. So I think organizations can allow that space for the individual to let their hair down a little bit by using some of these things and prioritizing what is important for them to stay resilient, to stay at it, to be focused at what they need to do. And when you run a lot of these fun contests, etc., through the use of technology, people get charged and come back, especially with the younger workforce. So, what a blessing that is compared to what we ever had in the past, right? A paper and pencil surveys, laborious things to where we have come today. So just going back to the analogy of automobile, BS1 to BS2 took 40 years. BS2 to BS3 came down lesser, about 10 plus years. BS3 to BS4 was about 7-8 years. And BS4 to BS6 was 3 years. So technology will happen. Let's be assured of that. Just let's be ready and enjoy that ride. And as HR, make use of all that is available to make life a little better for your employees, right? Right from the way you get into work, sign-on process into the work. Today it's virtual. I know that in some organizations they've enabled it in the bus in which the employee travels because it's a travel of 2 hours. Empathy, right? Okay, you can log in and start working, right? What happens? It doesn't matter. You're not working in a lab. You're working in an IT environment which can easily be enabled. But many times we don't like to do it because we're so stuck in our head. And I think that's where HR can really play a role in facilitating a lot of these processes, make it easier. The jobs are going to be tougher, right? But the environment can be made easier with the use of technology.
So Uma, as you're narrating that, the thought which is crossing my mind is that it's no more iPhone moment or Instagram moment. It's a GPT moment, right? And how it's kind of scaling up into everybody's life, right? Okay. So Sharad, quickly your input.
In certain areas, we are already in the virtual world. So major, as mentioned, HR need to be empathetic, helping the employees, but at the same time, vigilant approach should be there because there's a lot of things going on, and we cannot. That trust factor is very important. So, empathetic approach, but at the same time, supporting the organization is also very important. So you need to be employee-centric approach, yes, but supporting the organization also plays a vital role. What I feel in this technology-driven world, yes, the business strategy and the IT department or the IT function has to be more careful in getting the data and getting the technology in the proper way. The trust and the integrity plays a major role. So technology, HR, already we are driven right from recruitment to exits. We have technology, but the integrity and trust plays a vital role. What I want to mention.
Yep. Awesome.
So I think articulated beautifully. I don't have to talk much, but a few important things, right? I think it was Simon Sinek who very popularly said, customers will not love your product or your company unless your employees love it first, right? So again, I talk about putting the onus back on the employees a little bit. Pardon me, I come from that field, right? So, but here's the thing: what if I were to go as an HR, go out to my organization and say that, hey, we're gonna flirt around, we're gonna touch base, we're gonna doodle around with some of these tools, technologies, and hey, we might fail. but that's okay. We are all in this together, right? So we're talking about trust, and we're talking about value proposition. What if I were to say to them that, hey, we're gonna try and embrace, because you need to be, and somebody's very famously again said that, AI will not replace your job. It might not replace the job, but the person who doesn't.
Think about that for a minute.
Yes.
I'm going to showcase something up here
Sure.
live for this audience, right? So I
Sure.
spoke about the GPT moment and how that's getting used,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to show you a live demo, and I'm going to surprise my panel members a little bit up here.
Because
They're not prepared.
because AIs and MLs will be there, but human connect, human touch is required in HR function. That people connect is always required. What I feel.
So the human in human resources is the key, right? So yeah, the value proposition that, hey, as an organization, we are all in this together. We're going to try, we're going to embrace, but we are embracing. That's the key. And we fail together. That's okay. We'll pick up the pieces. We'll try again.
Right. So here's a GPT moment for all of you. I'm going to give them a specific prompt in the GPT format, and they're going to give you a word, right? So panel members, I request you to give one sentence of inspiration, no more than 10 words, of what these HR professionals who are in front of you can do differently starting today.
Remember, and this is from MIT's Collective Intelligence Center for Collective Intelligence. So all that is not part of your 10 words. Huh? Remember, 60
Would you
million
accept that-
jobs.
Would you accept that response? No, right?
60 million jobs are going away because of AI, but 80 million jobs are going to get created.
That's a GPT response, right? Uma?
I don't know, GPT or whatever. Change is the only constant. Embrace it, love it, you're going to do fine.
Only word is enable technology. Technology is important. We have to live with the technology.
GPT response 10 words. I will trust you by default unless you prove otherwise.
And my GPT response, it's a journey, not a destination. So with that,